If you don't like the way we do things here, you can leave. Okay. This is a little long. Sorry. When I was in college, I worked for a mobile carrier in a mall. For a young person, it was great money. I was the assistant manager, which was a fancy way of saying I was in charge of most of the store paperwork. And #X200B. A few months before, one morning, I opened by myself and a guy approached me asking for a specific phone and kept balking at the price, asking if I could cut him a deal though. I was confident we were by far the cheapest in the area, so I told him, if you bring me a better deal, I'll beat it. The guy does another lap, talks to other stores, and comes back. Come on, there is nothing you can do. Can I just get a case? I smile and say, sorry, that's the best I can do today, but can I get your number in case we get a sale that brings the price down? This sometimes actually did work. His entire demeanor changed and he handed me paperwork out of his bag and showed me his ID. He was from Corporate LP, Loss Preventions. Apparently my store ranked top in the state for excessive discounts and excessive waste. He then hands me a document showing all of my friends and family discounts. So I flip open my phone. Yes, it still flipped, and showed him all the names on the list are in my phone, thus are friends and family. He thanks me and says he'll stick around to talk to my boss and one other team member. Since smartphones aren't really a big thing at the time, the LP guy starts talking to me about my job, and I ask him a little more about what exactly flagged our store. Turns out the other two people he wanted to talk to had more than 30% of their transactions marked with that discount code, and our store seemed to lose lots of inventory. Store practice was that if you open an accessory and it was damaged in shipping, you just throw it away and grab another one. Turns out there is a process you need to follow. He showed me the form and said you really should be between X and X a month to be considered average. He then interviews my boss and co-worker who couldn't prove that their discounts were accurate, and they were let off with a stern warning. From then on, I took on the responsibility of tracking inventory and warning the team when we were getting close to the monthly limit. Like a miracle, cases stopped breaking for the rest of the month with these announcements. And #X200B. Fast forward. I open by myself again one morning. An older gentleman approaches me and starts screaming at me about being a heartless bastard, and asking, how the hell can you do this to people? I look at him puzzled. Sir, I have no idea who you are, so you can't possibly be mad at me specifically. Let's go sit over there and have a quick chat. As soon as we sit down, I look at him and he starts crying and shaking. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna lose my house. He goes on to tell me his son had gotten 10 free phones from my store and the monthly bill was roughly $800 plus tax. Sir, if your son started an account with us, there is nothing I can do without him coming to the store. The dad shows me a photo in his wallet and explains that his son lives in a home because he's too old to take care of him. He's visibly disabled. He was already barely getting by paying for his house plus his son to be taken care of. My heart dropped as I figured out what had happened. My co-worker had sold the phones to his son while they were on a mall outing with his group home. Furious, I go back to the store and void the entire order. I instruct the dad to bring me every phone he can find. Anything not in the store that day would be marked as stolen. I write up the inventory report and mark all of those phones stolen for the time being. County worker comes in and I say, don't bother clocking in. I saw your order from last night. Just know that it's voided. If you pull anything like that again, I'll make sure you're fired. Take the rest of the weekend off. He argues for a moment, but leaves. 25 minutes later, and early for his shift, my boss shows up saying he heard what happened. I show him all of the paperwork and explain what I did to solve it. Irritated, he looks at me and says something like, you know you can't do that, right? He then argues with me that I had no right to void the order and the contract was the contract. Confused and angry, I say, look, I will not sit by and allow people to be taken advantage of like that, to which he replies, if you don't like the way we do things here, you can leave. Shocked, I walk back into the store where he tells me he is taking care of all of the paperwork to fix my mess. Quietly I rip up my inventory report with a smile and tell him I'm leaving for the day. I call a friend who said, why don't you just get an IT job, what I was going to school for? He then calls a recruiter and sets up an interview for the next morning. Boss's little push gave me the drive to just go for it. I nailed the interview and get the job. My now ex-boss texted me shortly after and said, hey op, you're late. To which I replied, no, I don't like the way you do things there. Silence. And #X200B. Fast forward a few months. Both the boss and the co-worker were fired for theft. You see, with the unexplained missing phones and with no one watching inventory, LP quickly took interest in the store again. Turns out the broken cases were actually team members giving away inventory to close sales. So when I was there, balancing inventory and giving warnings, it was letting them know just how much they could steal and get away with it. Without me there, they just did whatever the heck they wanted. From what I hear, they were escorted out by security and all. And #X200B. So in the end, I was pushed to start the career of my dreams. They have a record. And #X200B. Thanks for sticking with me, sorry it was so long. I prefer the longer posts. Especially when they are as entertaining as this one. Thanks for sharing. This makes me so sad. I work in a phone store and people put so much trust in me. I can't imagine doing anything like that to people. Long post, but good story. I don't know you, but I'm proud of you. It's hard to do the right thing in a retail setting sometimes, especially when the right thing is not a black and white fix on paper. Good job, and take this story into your next interview. A good company values integrity. Not going to lie, if I am ever in a situation where a dude from corporate pretends to be a customer to catch me fucking up, I will happily walk out of my job on the spot. No one needs to work for a company that pulls stunts like that. Op. How your co-worker managed to sell 10 phone to a disabled man without his family noticing the sale or that he have bunch of a new phone. Although scamming disabled people is a crime, how can your boss is okay with it? Long but fun. And thanks for sticking up for the disabled. Australia's largest mobile network, Telstra, were recently fined $50 million for exploiting First Nations people by manipulating credit assessments and signing them up to contracts they couldn't afford. Ugh. I used to sell phones, think the big pink brand and the big yellow brand in the US, for an authorized reseller in the mid-2000s when I was in college. My store manager used to brag that when a customer was approved for 5 lines, the usual max, but only wanted 1, he would open all 5 to get the commission, and stats for the store, then cancel the 4 unwanted lines before the deadline. Like, he openly bragged about this like he was proud. No idea how pink and yellow never caught on to that because he'd been doing it for years. This is part of the reason I will still only go to a corporate-owned store for sell stuff. Damn, people will really dig their own grave and hand you the shovel to bury them. Wow, what a story. Thanks for sharing. So glad you were able to help that poor old guy. Really glad the 2 creeps were fired. Really, really glad you moved to the career of your dreams. Aren't contracts void if someone isn't of sound mind? This wouldn't happen to be the Sprint kiosk at Town East Mall, would it? Circa 2006 7ths. LP guy really did go around checking other stores' prices. That's dedication. The only thing I would have done differently would have been to alert the company fraud department to the transaction. As somebody who used to work in retail for 10+ years, you handled a screaming swearing person better than I ever could have. Good on you for saving that poor guy. There is no way this is not an AT&T store. Okay, so what's cool, mom? It's savory, but you came here. Thanks for doing the right thing. Glad you got out of there. A read like this is not long at all. Well done. What a great tale. Thanks for sharing it. Are there other consequences besides losing their job? Impressive. Perfect length. Sounds like a cell phone booth I recall working in St. Pete, Florida some decades back. Good on you for fixing what you could. Congrats, you were awarded a Crime Buster Award. You really should have checked with your immediate supervisor before voiding an order like that. But they would have told you no anyway. Wow. Some people. Finally, some actual malicious compliance. Thanks for sharing. Fucking bravo dude, hands clapping, hands clapping, hands clapping, hands clapping. Needed too long, did not read. Thank you for sticking up for the old timer. You saved his and his son's life by living up to your ideals. Good for you. There was a post on here a few days ago that dealt with workers giving a "you need to do this or I quit" mentality. If you're willing to make threats, then be willing to accept the consequences. That goes both ways. Employers who do this kind of stuff should be prepared to lose good employees too. Good read. Glad you stuck to your principles and leveled up. The ones that were stealing are lucky they were only escorted out by security. They could have been escorted by the police, in handcuffs. This was a long one, but every beat was worth it. I hate to think the trouble that family would have been in if you hadn't intervened. Sounds like the cow orcas were a few bars short of a signal, but their new house had plenty. This sounds like some Best Buy mobile shenanigans. I don't know if it was just my store a decade ago or not, but shady practices ran rampant, especially by the lead managers. That got my justice boner going. No sorry dude, I love a Disney ending. Jail would have been nice though. This is a little long. Sorry, thanks for sticking with me, sorry it was so long. Is this my long-lost drunk Uncle Tom? Any other time, I wouldn't have read this whole damn thing. But I figured out how to use the voiceover feature on my phone. So, I can just have the phone read it to me. Anyway, congrats on the new position. It's always good when a bad experience at one job leads to a new job. Congrats again. Good on you, op. I'm glad you were able to get something better. You deserved it. Absolutely fucking brilliant. The truth shall set you free. Well, this time. The world be a Chang'an. That's sad honestly. Oh, what a sweet dose of compliance. Beautiful is the only word that comes to mind. Wow, what a story. I'm really glad there are people out there that don't worship the dollar and know when things are wrong. You even corrected the order of that poor man, GG. You write very well. Thanks for sharing.